What new insight caused my change of perspective? And how does this relate to the future of humanity? Well, this video is about a discovery of a roadmap for humanity inspired by nature. In my search for health, I started looking at the human body in a completely different way. I first saw a body as the doctor saw it, a collection of organs connected by different tissues, in which all kinds of complex processes were going on. Now I see the human body as a very advanced society of billions of cells organized in a swarm that behave like one big superorganism. A biological society which has solved all the problems which our technological society still has to solve. In other words, a treasure of information and knowledge from which we can learn a lot like humans. Humans have only just arrived, while these cells have been here on Earth for billions of years. Because my daughter had a rare genetic disorder, I first started to study traditional genetics. Traditional genetics are based on genetic determinism, which means that the genetic information in the cells you were born with is static. So this genetic code remains the same from birth until the day you die. Well, this was all but the encouraging news I was looking for. It would mean that we couldn't change much about our daughter's condition. But then I stumbled upon the term epigenetics. And this is a relatively new scientific perspective with a more holistic view on genetics. This new perspective says that the genetic material in cells continuously adapts to the changing environmental factors. And cells can therefore switch genes on and off based on the information in their environment. And this fascinated me enormously, and I started reading books. Many books, including some by Bruce Lipton. Bruce Lipton is an American scientist who specialized in stem cell biology. And Bruce did a lot of research on stem cells. And he focused on the communication between cells. And while cloning stem cells, he made a remarkable discovery. He did genetically identical cells in 3 different culture trays. And what he only did was change the cell's environment. And what happened is as follows. In the first container grew muscle cells. In the second container grew bone cells, and in the third container grew fat cells. In a nutshell, he discovered that genetic information in our cells develops differently based on the environment in which they are located. Stem cells are therefore born blank, as it were, and based on their location in the organism, they become fat cells, bone cells, or muscle cells. It's just what their environment demands of them. We can compare this with human beings who are born blank and who choose a role based on their environments that adds value to that environment. One person becomes a blacksmith and makes tools, the other becomes a carpenter and builds houses, and the third becomes a farmer and provides food for his village. In this way, the environment in which a person or a cell is located and grows up has a great deal of influence on this person or cell's formation. And this insight gave me a different perspective and turned my image of genetics completely upside down. It gave me also hope again, because apparently there was a possibility to steer or influence cell development and their genetic information. And by changing environmental factors, cells could change certain genes and their gene expression on or off. I thought it was all great to discover, but at the same time it was at odds with what traditional genetics told us in the hospital. But in the end, it didn't stop me from doing further research. Bruce Lipton also discovered that if you put diseased cells between a majority of healthy cells, these diseased cells will recover and get better. The reverse is also true. If you put healthy cells between the majority of diseased cells, then these healthy cells become diseased. The gene expression depends on the environment in which cells are located and can therefore be somewhat controlled. My search continued. I discovered that cells can communicate with their environment in quite an advanced way. If they could not do so, they would not be able to adapt seamlessly to their environment. And good to know is that cells communicate through their cell membrane and their outer cell membrane. You can see this cell as a kind of computer and its cell membrane as the keyboard. And by entering different input on the keyboard, the cell is programmed differently. And this may sound a bit strange, but we humans do exactly the same. Through our membrane, our skin, we communicate 85% of the information with the environment in a form of non-verbal communication. And we do this through expressions of emotions, facial expressions and body language. Only 50% of our communication is verbal, through spoken words. What I found out is that cells, just like humans, have 2 extreme states in which they can be. One extreme state is the state of stress, In this stress state, the cell membrane is hardened and cells reduce their communication channels with the environment and their neighbor cells. And this causes communication problems. All kinds of processes in organs and tissues are less smooth. And eventually this can result in problems in the whole body, which is actually the beginning of a chronic disease. The other extreme state is the state of relaxation. In this state, cell membrane becomes more fluid and the cell starts to share more information with its environment and fellow cells. If it is possible to communicate more freely, cells become more creative, more innovative and solve more complex problems. And we call this the self-healing capacity of our body, which is very, very powerful. Our body can repair many things itself, only we have to enable our body to do this by relaxing and taking in good nutrition. People exhibit the same behavior. When people are in stress mode, they turn inside themselves and reduce their communication with the environment and their colleagues. And as a result, collaboration processes go less smoothly. So that teams, departments and eventually entire organizations can experience problems. In contrast, when people are in the relaxed mode, they communicate more freely with their environment and their colleagues. They share more information and as a result, teams of people become more creative and innovative and can solve much bigger problems than before. So organizations also have a self-healing ability, but for this we need to be in a relaxed culture. An open, creative, relaxed environment where people communicate and learn from each other's insights. Based on these previous insights, we have found a new kind of therapy that helped our daughter relax on a cellular level. With this new therapy, we have reactivated her body's self-healing capacity, step by step, to enable her body to heal itself again. And this has helped create a cell culture in her body that has had a positive effect on her cells and her gene expression. Today we don't need the therapy anymore. Lieke is almost 10 years old and she leads a completely normal life. However, my search has not stopped at curing our daughter. For the last 10 years I've been working on this matter daily. And because I have a background in corporate organizations and technology, I saw more and more parallels between how communities of cells solve problems using biological systems in organisms and how communities of Homo sapiens with technological systems solved organizations' problems. Our body is an extremely complex society of cells and a result of an evolutionary process of over 1 billion years. Cells are just like people. They are social, they communicate, they multiply and they start communities. And as these cell communities grew larger and more complex, they encountered all kinds of practical problems. They had to solve these problems first if they were to develop further in the next phase of their civilization. So nature has already solved all problems we still have before us, elegantly and intelligently. And we just have to become aware of it. Nature offers us a very detailed roadmap towards a future regenerative society. The only thing we have to do is follow that roadmap and realign with nature. We will go much deeper into the next module on this subject, but for now I would like to end with a quote from Bruce Lipton. What Bruce says is as follows: in reality, a cell is a biological mini-me compared to the human body. A cell has every biological system that you have. So we have more in common with cells than we initially thought. Cells have been here on Earth for quite some time now, so perhaps it would be wise to learn from them. I'm convinced they have a lot of wise lessons to teach us, but more about that in the next video. I hope you found this video inspiring to watch and I look forward to see you in the next video.